Hey, I'm Mike with woodshopmike.com, and today I'm going to show you how I knocked out these pepper grinders in just a couple hours. Now you can take on this project too using almost any lathe you have, so stick around and I'll show you how I did it.
The first step in this project is to cut at least two surfaces square to one another. This allows me to accurately cut off the ends at the miter saw. Over at the drill press, I first make a 9/32 hole all the way through the top. Next I'll set up to drill the pepper mill body. A hand screw clamp helps me hold the blank still while I drill this 1 5/8 hole in from the bottom. This is followed up with a 1 1/16 hole for the cavity. And once this is drilled from both sides, I'll then switch to a 1-inch speed bore to hog out the rest. Here you'll see I stack a couple pieces of plywood underneath the blank instead of having to constantly adjust the table height. This really saves some time. And with these steps done, now we can get over to the lathe. It's always a good idea to turn the blank by hand first to make sure your piece won't hit the tool rest when you turn on the lathe. I'll start off by making the blank round with a 3/4 inch spindle roughing gouge. A quick way to see if your piece is round is to lay the back of the tool against the piece while it's running. If everything's smooth, you're good to keep going. Now it's time to lay out my design. I'll mark the transitions with a pencil and then scribe the lines with the edge of a parting tool. To form the tenon that'll turn inside the pepper mill, I'll use the parting tool. Now this needs to be just a touch under 1 1/16 in diameter and about a 1/2 inch long. I'll use my calipers to help me get the perfect fit. Here I use the parting tool, along with calipers again, to size the next element. Whoop, just a little bit small. There we go. Now with a 3/8 spindle gouge, I'll roll a 1/2 bead. Now I quickly check against the other top, and I'm ready for the next step. With the piece reversed, I'll cut a short tenon to rough size. And using the 3/8 spindle gouge, I'll get started on the main part of the body. Also, I'm using a Nova G3 chuck with pin jaws for this step, and I'll have a link below in the descriptions for you, so you can check that out. Working the transition between the bead and the cove here gets a little tight, so I'll switch up to a detail spindle gouge in that section. So, you remember that little tenon? Now it's time to refine it with the detail spindle gouge. With some quick sanding from 120 to 300 grit, we're ready to move on to the body. Now I'll slide the blank over the jaws, bring up the tailstock and expand the chuck to hold the piece firmly. Excessive force with this step will split the blank though, so go easy. Back with the roughing gouge, I get to work by bringing the piece down to the proper size. Whoops, I forgot to chuck the piece into that 1 5/8 hole I drilled earlier. This will give me some clearance off the jaws so I can turn the entire body in one time. You see that bar conclusion? That's gotta go. I start by rolling a 1/2 bead where the top will meet, and then I get to work bringing down the middle portion. Once I see how much material I need to remove, I grab my woodpecker scale and mark out the transition lines. First I'll cut the contour on the middle section. Now I could have switched back to my roughing gouge to speed up this step a bit, but the trusty 3/8 spindle gouge works just fine. Long, slow passes from the beginning to end of each element will produce the most consistent curves. Now it's time to roll a few more beads. I start out with a regular 3/8 spindle gouge, then when I get into the real small details, I grab my detail gouge to knock these out. Light cuts and a fluid wrist will help you to roll symmetric beads, well, and a bit of practice. I go through all that fun sanding stuff again. Now we're ready for finish. Now this is my first time using Osmo oil, but I love the satin look it gives, so I just had to try it out. I was really surprised how little finish I actually needed to apply, so take it from me and go lightly. After the entire piece had finish applied, I grabbed a clean rag and wiped off the excess. After everything had sat for a few minutes, I grabbed a new rag and just rubbed down the pieces to bring out a little shine. I don't know about you, but that looks pretty good. The hardware I used for this pepper mill is from Craft Supplies USA. There's a link below for the specific kits that I used. They make really good stuff, so if you haven't been there before, go check them out. I like to pre-drill the holes for these small screws that are used in the kit. It just makes installing them a little bit easier, and it reduces the likelihood that I'll strip out one of those tiny screw heads. Now if you're new to woodturning, this is a pretty good first project. The instructions are super easy to follow, the project itself isn't all that difficult, and you end up with a really cool looking pepper mill.
Alright, well that's going to wrap us up for the day. I hope you enjoyed the project. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button. And while you're at it, hit the bell notification so you don't miss another video. If there's a project you'd like to see me take on, leave it in the comments below. And until next time, have fun making something.